Hello everybody, this is Ahmed Mosley from projectcoe.com with a very interesting video. I've always wanted to do this for so long. As you've all known, this is going to be about Zelda and basically the Zelda Timeline. The reason why I'm doing this now is recently Dan Olsen reconfirmed the Zelda Timeline. Dan Olsen, as you all know, he's part of the localization team in Nintendo of America. He previously worked on Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. I think he left the company, then came back right now into the localization team, working on the 3D remake of Ocarina of Time. So it's a appropriate time to actually talk about this right now. Way before I've been writing for Project COE, I've actually been a huge debater in the Zelda Timeline back in the day, in the forums and whatnot. As well, another thing that inspired me is there's this site called ZeldaTimeline.com. It has this basic rundown of the timeline in really basic fashion, using diagrams and whatnot. So I'm gonna attempt to do this here, sort of like a lesson series or a lecture series. Bear with me and hopefully we can get through this. This is basically, I'm just going to talk about how the timeline revolves around Ocarina of Time and why it depends on it so much. First off, I'm just going to list off the games in something I like to call the two lines. Let me just write something here. This line represents time. No, I'm just kidding. This is like a really cheesy Back to the Future reference that I'd like to put there. So I'm gonna go in terms of release date. Backward. So first off, Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo, followed by Zelda 2. These are the first two games, and then in the Super Nintendo era, we got A Link to the Past, followed by Link's Awakening for the Game Boy, and then in the Nintendo 64 era, we got Ocarina of Time, followed by Majora's Mask. So if you all noticed how I went here, this was Nintendo's usual pattern in going through the timeline. They release a game, then they release its sequel, and then in the next generation or the next era of consoles, they release a prequel to the actual games, followed by a sequel. Same thing up until Ocarina of Time and Majora's Masks. Things actually really changed significantly since then. With the release of the Wind Waker. Let me put another illustration here to just make it easier for everybody. Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, and we got Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2. So yeah, up until Majora's Mask, this has been Nintendo's usual pattern. When they released the Wind Waker, things a bit changed, and this bit of the timeline proves two things. It's a thing that has been debated for so long. So what basically happened is they released a sequel to Ocarina of Time, but it didn't exactly follow it as we expect. As you see here from the illustration, this is called a split timeline theory, and like I said, this theory has been in debate for years now. We haven't gotten an official confirmation from Nintendo up until a few years back, when Mr. Onoma himself got an interview with, I think, Nintendo Dream was the magazine, about post-mortem stuff about Twilight Princess, and here is where he confirmed the existence of the split timeline theory. Before that, we went with vague quotes and a couple of theories that depended on the single timeline theory instead of a split. But basically Mr. Onuma confirmed this, so the split timeline is the official timeline. Basically what happens is Ocarina of Time, it has two endings, the child ending and the adult ending. What happens is the child ending is where Zelda in the end sends Link back to his childhood so can he relive it. And basically this sets the events of Majora's Mask. And in contrast, the adult timeline theory is a timeline where the hero of time does not exist anymore because Zelda sent him back. So this is a precursor of the events of the Wind Waker, where there's no hero appearing when the seal got weakened and Ganondorf broke free, or didn't break free, but the seal weakened. And in order to protect Hyrule, the gods put the flood thing, or flooded the whole country. Which is why the Wind Waker is like this in post-apocalyptic type feel, with multiple islands here and there, with no clear evidence of a big land of Hyrule developing in this 100-year gap, or hundreds of years of gap between Ocarina of Time and the Wind Waker. So this is basically what happened. What Mr. Onuma confirmed further is Twilight Princess actually takes place in this side of the timeline, which is the child timeline. Following Ocarina of Time, again, it's a parallel to the Wind Waker, where the Wind Waker follows Ocarina of Time hundreds of years in the adult side. Twilight Princess as well follows Ocarina of Time, but hundreds of years later in the child side. What Mr. Onuma here confirms that, and Majora's Mask also hints at, is the events that happen in the Ocarina of Time, in which Link opens the door of time and Ganondorf tricks him, so he goes after him and gets the Triforce. This actually does not happen in the child timeline. It goes to a different route, because we've seen in Majora's Mask like a key scene in which Link, and even it's hinted at the ending of Ocarina of Time, the child side, and Link goes to Zelda and talks to her. Well, we don't know what he talks to her about. We just know vaguely in Majora's Mask that he's going to a quest and coming back. Zelda gives him the Ocarina of Time as a gift, and she feels that she knows him and is familiar with him. There's actually, like, behind the scenes talks between Link and Zelda. Link knows what's going to happen if they go through the same route they went through, like going to get the spiritual stones and opening the door of time. So he talks to Zelda, and they don't do that. Actually, they sort of like warn the king that Ganondorf is going to invade or is going to do something evil. We don't know what kind of evil he did in this timeline, but Onuma says that he was about to do something, but he was caught by the king actually, and he was caught by the king, and this is where one of Twilight Princess major scenes takes place. Remember, I'm going to put the link here, the Ganondorf execution scene. In that game, if you all remember, there's some sort of flashback. Again, the game does not, it's unfortunate, but the game doesn't say that this takes place after Ocarina of Time or during the era of Ocarina of Time, but it does actually take place during that time. So that scene in which Ganondorf is caught and then stabbed with a sword in his stomach, and by some divine prank, in air quotes, he gets the Triforce of Power. Again, we have no idea exactly how. They only say divine prank, but I guess that because Twilight Princess and the Wind Waker are parallelisms, and it was like sort of Ganon's destiny to always obtain the Triforce of Power, even if Link changes time, he gets it anyway through divine prank of the gods, as they say. So this scene basically explains the backstory of Twilight Princess and its relationship to Ocarina of Time. So that's basically it with the gist of the split timeline. And here's where I want to question a link to the past's relationship with Ocarina of Time. As you've seen in the previous illustration here, up to this point, where in the Nintendo 64 era, it was all clear and really straightforward. We've always associated A Link to the Past with Ocarina of Time via the imprisoning war, and that's the only relationship between them, actually. More evidence is when A Link to the Past was remade on the Game Boy Advance. They actually redone the intro a bit, retranslate some of the key words, like 7 wise men was turned into 7 sages, and so on and so forth, which strengthens the relationship between A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. But in the same time, this clutter here, the releases around Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, they actually dilute the relationship of A Link to the Past with Ocarina of Time. Because if you think about it, as I've put in the illustration here, the imprisoning war is a relationship between both games. But from a logical standpoint, how come A Link to the Past refers to Ocarina of Time directly, but never goes to either side of the timeline? It never refers to the events of The Wind Waker, which are major, by the way. It just refers to this, and never refers to the events of Twilight Princess. And it's really hard to associate, because it seems as if up to Ocarina of Time's Nintendo 64 release, that Ganondorf has been sealed here, and then he awakens or breaks the seal here. But in actual fact, no, he doesn't. He actually breaks the seal here and breaks the seal here as well. So, and actually here the major or other different events. So, and they don't really follow up well with A Link to the Past, because after The Wind Waker, Ganondorf dies and the Master Sword is buried in Hyrule. And after Twilight Princess, we've seen also as well Ganondorf dies here. So, and in A Link to the Past and its intro in the prologue, he's actually not dead, he's alive and well, but sealed in the Dark World, or the Sacred Realm, with the Triforce, which is the relationship to Ocarina of Time. So it's kind of confusing that A Link to the Past refers to a game that's far before and does not refer to the events here. So in essence, this is where all the theories, or all the people who are passionate about making theories about the timeline, have the debates. This area here, the relationship to A Link to the Past, where does it take place in the timeline? Does it take place here in the adult, or does it take place here in the child timeline? So as I said, it's been diluted so much, the imprisoning war relationship,